Some promises are written with love and kept with sacrifice. It started with a promise whispered under a flickering kitchen light. Maria sat at the worn wooden table, her hands wrapped around a chipped mug of coffee, staring at the stack of bills in front of her. Across from her sat her daughter, Emily, 17, bright-eyed, full of dreams that reached far beyond their small apartment. "Mom," Emily said softly, "I got accepted. State university. Full tuition's not covered, but..." Maria's heart tightened. The words that followed were heavy, full of numbers and deadlines. But she didn't let the fear show. She reached across the table, squeezed her daughter's hand, and smiled with quiet conviction. "We'll make it happen," she said. "I promise." It was a promise born from love. The kind of love that doesn't calculate, doesn't hesitate, and doesn't quit. That night, when Emily went to bed, Maria stayed awake, staring at the acceptance letter. Her chest swelled with pride and dread. The next morning, before the sun rose, she began searching for extra work. She already worked full-time at a diner, but she picked up evening shifts cleaning offices and weekends at a laundromat. 3 jobs. No time to rest. No time to complain. But every time exhaustion whispered that it was too much, she'd picture Emily's smile, that radiant hope, and whisper back, "A promise is a promise." The alarm rang at 4:15 a.m., the same shrill sound that had become the rhythm of Maria's new life. She slipped out of bed quietly, careful not to wake Emily. The floor was cold beneath her feet, and her body ached from the night before, but she pushed through. There wasn't room for rest, not when dreams were at stake. Her first stop was the diner. The early morning crowd was impatient, but Maria served coffee with a smile. Every tip she earned went into a small jar labeled College Fund. She kept it hidden in the pantry, away from Emily's curious eyes. By afternoon, she rushed home just long enough to shower and change before heading to her second job, cleaning offices downtown. The scent of lemon cleaner clung to her skin. The hum of fluorescent lights filled her head. And when the clock struck 9, she clocked out, only to start her weekend shifts folding endless piles of laundry at the laundromat. Days blurred together. Coffee replaced sleep, and determination replaced fear. At home, Maria never let Emily see the exhaustion etched into her face. When her daughter talked about dorm life, classes, and new beginnings, Maria smiled, nodding, always saying, "You'll get there, mija. You just focus on your studies." But some nights, after Emily went to bed, Maria would sit by the kitchen window, rubbing her hands, red and cracked, whispering, "Just hold on, 1 more month." She didn't realize that sometimes love means giving so much of yourself that you forget what it feels like to rest. And yet, she wouldn't have it any other way. Because a mother's promise doesn't fade. It burns quietly, like a candle that refuses to go out. By winter, Maria's body was running on fumes. The long hours, the skipped meals, the sleepless nights. They all began to blur into one endless cycle. But every time she thought about stopping, she'd see Emily's college acceptance letter taped proudly on the fridge. That letter was her fuel, her why. One Thursday evening, while rushing from the office cleaning job to the laundromat, Maria slipped on the icy sidewalk. Pain shot through her wrist as she hit the ground, her bag spilling across the snow. Papers, cleaning gloves, and a photo of Emily scattered before her. For a moment, she just sat there, in the freezing dark, tears mixing with the cold air. "Why does it have to be so hard?" she whispered. She managed to stand, clutching her wrist, and forced herself to keep walking. The doctor later told her it was a sprain, not broken, but she'd need to rest. Rest. The word felt like a luxury she couldn't afford. At the laundromat, folding clothes with one good hand, Maria fought the urge to cry again. Every motion burned, but she refused to stop. Her coworkers noticed. One of them, Rosa, an older woman who'd seen her exhaustion for months, gently said, "Maria, you can't pour from an empty cup." Maria smiled weakly. "I'll rest when she walks across that stage," she replied. That night, she came home later than usual. Emily had fallen asleep on the couch, books open beside her. Maria covered her with a blanket and stood there, watching. Despite the pain in her wrist, a soft smile spread across her face. Because in that moment, she remembered, love isn't about having strength all the time. It's about finding strength even when you've got nothing left to give. Bills piled up like mountains on the kitchen table. Each envelope was another reminder that Maria was running out of time. Rent was due. The electric bill was overdue. And the college fund jar, once a source of hope, was barely half full. She stared at the numbers late one night, rubbing her temples as exhaustion blurred her vision. 3 jobs, and still not enough. Maybe I can't do it," she whispered to the silence. The words broke her heart as soon as they left her lips. Emily walked in quietly, rubbing her eyes. "Mom, are you okay?" Maria forced a smile, quickly wiping a tear. "Just tired, baby. Go back to bed." But Emily didn't move. She hugged her mother tightly, a small, warm embrace that felt like light in the darkness. "You always tell me not to give up, right? So you can't either." Those words, simple, innocent, hit Maria harder than any bill or broken bone. The next morning, still uncertain but unwilling to quit, she stopped by a local coffee shop on her way to work. The owner, Mr. Lewis, a kind older man, noticed the brace on her wrist. "Rough week?" he asked. She laughed softly. "Rough year." He listened as she told him a little about her situation. Not everything, just enough. Before she left, he handed her a small envelope. "Consider this a little help," he said. Inside was a check, enough to cover 1 month of Emily's tuition. Maria froze, tears flooding her eyes. "I can't accept this," she said, voice trembling. "Yes, you can," he replied gently. "Sometimes, strength means letting others help." That night, for the first time in months, Maria slept with hope in her heart. The world had finally whispered back, "You're not alone." The envelope from Mr. Lewis had done more than pay a bill. It had reignited something in Maria's heart. For the first time in months, she allowed herself to hope again. Maybe she could do this. Maybe, just maybe, she wasn't fighting alone. Days turned into weeks, and Maria began to find her rhythm again. She smiled more. She laughed with Emily over late-night dinners of instant noodles and shared dreams. They even started a small ritual. Every Sunday night, they'd write down one good thing that had happened that week and place it in a jar labeled gratitude. But life has a cruel way of testing those who dare to hope. One morning, Maria arrived at the diner to find a sign on the door. Closed for renovations, indefinitely. Her chest tightened. That was her most stable job, the one that kept them afloat. She called her boss, her voice trembling. "What does this mean for us?" "I'm sorry, Maria," he sighed. "We don't know when, or if, we'll reopen." The world seemed to tilt beneath her feet. Again. For a moment she wanted to scream, to cry, to let the fear swallow her whole. But when she looked down at her phone, she saw her lock screen, a picture of Emily at her school's science fair, smiling proudly. And Maria whispered to herself, "You promised." That night, she sat at the kitchen table, searching for odd jobs online. Babysitting, cleaning, delivery, anything that could help her stay afloat. She sent out dozens of messages, her eyes burning with fatigue. Finally, around midnight, she received a reply. "Looking for a reliable cleaner for weekend shifts. Decent pay. Start tomorrow." Maria exhaled shakily. Hope, once again, had found a way through the cracks. The new cleaning job was at a small community center on the edge of town, Not glamorous, not easy, but steady. The kind of place where laughter echoed down the halls, where children played after school, and volunteers greeted her with warm smiles. Maria arrived early on her first day, mop in one hand, nerves in the other. As she cleaned the gym floor, a group of kids practiced basketball nearby. Their coach, a kind man in his 40s named Derek, noticed her struggling with the heavy buckets. "Let me help with that," he said, walking over. Maria smiled politely but shook her head. "I've got it. I'm stronger than I look." He grinned. "I can tell." Over the following weeks, Maria began to enjoy the small moments at the center, watching the kids laugh, hearing their dreams, remembering how Emily used to giggle the same way when she was younger. Derek often stayed late too, and they'd talk as she cleaned. About life, about faith, about trying to do the right thing even when it felt impossible. One night, as she wiped down the bleachers, Derek asked, "You always work this hard?" Maria chuckled softly. "I made a promise to my daughter, to give her a better future. So, yeah, I guess I do." He looked at her for a long moment, admiration clear in his eyes. "You're the strongest person I've met." Maria blushed, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "No, I just don't know how to quit." What she didn't know was that her determination was about to inspire more than just her daughter. Because kindness has a way of coming full circle. And Derek was already thinking of how he could help her, without wounding her pride. That night, Maria went home smiling for the first time in a long time. Hope didn't feel so heavy anymore. Over the next few months, Maria became part of the community center family. The kids adored her. They'd wave when she arrived, and even Derek started calling her the heart of the place. But beneath the smiles and small talk, Maria still carried the same quiet storm: exhaustion, debt, fear. She hid it well, but Derek noticed the way her hands trembled some nights, the dark circles beneath her eyes, the way she sometimes stared into the distance when she thought no one was watching. One evening, after the kids had gone home, Derek found her sitting on a bench in the empty gym, rubbing her wrists. "You okay?" he asked softly. She smiled faintly. "Just tired. Always tired." He sat beside her, studying her face. "You ever take a break?" She laughed under her breath. "Single moms don't really get those." Something about the way she said it broke him a little. Over time, he'd learned bits and pieces. How she worked 3 jobs, how she'd promised her daughter a future she couldn't yet afford, how she never complained. But now, he understood the full weight of it. The next day, he talked to the center's director. "We've got to do something for her," he said. Within a week, the staff quietly organized a fundraiser: bake sales, car washes, small donations from parents and volunteers. No one told Maria. It was a secret born from gratitude and admiration. When the total was counted, Derek could hardly believe it. It wasn't millions, but it was enough. Enough to cover Emily's first semester of college. He held the envelope in his hands for a long moment, unsure how to give it to her without making her feel pitied. But then he smiled. He'd find a way, something that honored her strength, not her struggle. It was a Friday evening when Maria arrived at the community center and noticed something strange: balloons, music, and the faint smell of chocolate cake drifting through the air. She frowned, setting down her cleaning supplies. "What's going on?" Before she could ask again, Derek appeared, smiling from ear to ear. "You'll see," he said. "Come inside." The gym was full. Kids, parents, volunteers, all clapping as she stepped in. On the wall hung a banner that read, "Thank you, Maria, for everything you do." Her hands went to her mouth. "What is this?" Rosa, her old coworker from the laundromat, had even shown up. "It's about time someone celebrated you," she said, hugging her tightly. Derek walked up, holding an envelope. "Maria," he began, his voice thick with emotion. "You've spent so much of your life helping others, keeping your promise to your daughter, never asking for anything in return. So we wanted to do something for you." He handed her the envelope. "This isn't charity, it's gratitude." Maria hesitated, her hands trembling as she opened it. Inside was a check, enough to cover Emily's first semester of college. Her knees weakened. She looked around the room, faces smiling, eyes teary, and finally burst into tears. "I don't know what to say," she whispered. "Just say yes," Derek replied. "You've given everyone here more than you realize." Maria hugged him, then turned to the crowd. "Thank you," she said, voice shaking. "I made a promise. And because of all of you, I can finally keep it." The room erupted in applause. For the first time in years, Maria didn't feel alone. Maria drove home that night in silence. The envelope lay on the passenger seat, as if glowing softly under the streetlights. Her hands trembled around the steering wheel, not from exhaustion this time, but from disbelief. When she walked through the door, Emily was studying at the kitchen table. She looked up, smiling. "Hey, Mom, you're home late again." Maria didn't answer. She just stood there, tears already in her eyes. "Mom?" Emily asked, worried. Maria sat beside her, placing the envelope between them. "I have something to tell you." Emily frowned, opening it slowly, and froze. What is this?" "It's your first semester, sweetheart," Maria said softly. "It's paid for." Emily's eyes widened, then filled with tears. "But how? You said we didn't have enough." Maria smiled through her tears. "We didn't, but some people decided to believe in us. They saw how hard I was trying, how hard we were trying, and they helped." For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then Emily covered her face, sobbing. "You worked so much, Mom. You skipped meals. You never rested. You did all that for me?" Maria took her daughter's hands. "I did it because I promised, and because I wanted you to know that no matter how hard life gets, love always finds a way." Emily threw her arms around her mother, holding her as if she'd never let go. Between tears, she whispered, "You're my real hero, Mom." Maria closed her eyes. In that embrace, warm, trembling, and full of love, every long night, every ache, every sacrifice finally made sense. For the first time in years, she didn't feel tired. She felt free. The day of Emily's graduation arrived with sunlight streaming through the curtains, soft, golden, and full of promise. Maria stood in front of the mirror, smoothing the wrinkles from her only nice dress. The same one she'd worn to every important event in Emily's life. Her first recital, her first school award, and now, her daughter's college graduation. As she arrived at the campus, rows of families filled the bleachers. Maria sat among them, her hands clasped tightly, her heart pounding. Then she saw her, Emily, walking across the stage in her blue cap and gown, the tassel swaying with every step. Maria's eyes filled instantly with tears. She thought of the nights scrubbing floors, of the empty dinners, of the ache in her wrist that never quite healed. Every sacrifice, every sleepless night, it had all led to this moment. When Emily received her diploma, she didn't walk off the stage. Instead, she turned to the microphone, her voice trembling. "I want to thank someone very special," she said, scanning the crowd until her eyes met her mother's. "My mom. She worked 3 jobs, never complained, and made me believe I could do anything. You're my real hero, Mom. This is for you." The crowd erupted in applause. Maria pressed a hand to her mouth, sobbing openly now. Derek, who sat nearby, placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder, smiling proudly. After the ceremony, Emily ran into her mother's arms. "We did it," she whispered. Maria held her tight, whispering back, "No, you did it. I just kept my promise." As they stood there, mother and daughter, surrounded by laughter, sunlight, and hope, Maria realized that love wasn't just about what you give. It was about what you build, together. And though her hands were worn and her back ached, her heart had never felt stronger. Because promises made in love never break, they bloom. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs hope today. Tell us in the comments, what promise has changed your life? At Brave Motherhood, every story is a tribute to love, strength, and the women who never give up.